3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
All right, welcome to Roots of Reality. I'm your host, Ben Baumann, and today I'm going to be talking about the history of soccer, or as most of the world calls it, football. So since medieval times, variations of soccer has been played across Europe, and for thousands of years, soccer-like games have been played all around the world. However, it wasn't until 1863 in England that the first actual organized soccer league formed, known as the Football Association. And from here, organized soccer would then expand across the entire world over time, becoming the most popular sport in the world. Now, in terms of the best soccer teams historically, when it comes to club teams, the best teams compete in what is called the Champions League, which is a league that encompasses all the best teams in Europe that have performed the best in their own specific country-based leagues. Thus, it is here where all the best clubs teams across Europe compete against each other in a tournament to be considered the best team in Europe. But really, it's the best in the world since the Champions League is the most prestigious club team tournament in the world. So historically, the first ever winner of the Champions League was the Spanish team called Real Madrid in the 1955-1956 season. And additionally, Real Madrid is also the latest winner of the Champions League as well and holds the record for the most championships at 14. And for some perspective here, second historically when it comes to Champions League wins is the Italian team AC Milan, who has only 7 championships. Thus, Real Madrid has a long history of being a dominant force in European soccer and is the best team historically. Now, when it comes to the best teams internationally, the FIFA World Cup is the biggest sporting event in the world, where every 4 years, countries try to qualify for this tournament, will then compete for the World Cup, which was first held in 1930 and won by the nation Uruguay. And the last World Cup, which was held in 2018, was won by France. However, historically, Brazil is the best country at soccer, winning 5 World Cups, which is the most ever. Then, when it comes to the best soccer players ever, we have players like the Brazilian soccer star Pelé, the Argentine soccer stars Diego Maradona and Lionel Messi, and of course the Portuguese player Cristiano Ronaldo, all of which are often debated about being the greatest of all time. Unfortunately, though, unlike sports like hockey, where there is a clear definitive choice for the greatest player ever in Wayne Gretzky, soccer is a sport where debates will likely rage on for many years about who is truly the greatest of all time, with many making arguments likely based on the player they remember watching when they grew up. After all of us like to think that we saw the greatest ever. Now, for many who don't actually watch soccer nor know much about it, you may be thinking, why is soccer so popular around the world? And obviously, like everything, this is due to a combination of factors. First, given the historic European influence around the world, obviously, since European countries had colonized nations all over the globe, they brought lots of cultural influence into these countries and therefore introduced the sport of soccer around the world. Additionally, though, is also so popular because soccer is just really easy to play. All you need is some space and a ball. And in turn, it's ultimately just a very cheap sport that requires little equipment, making a sport that can be played by anyone, whether they are rich or poor. And these aspects combined with the invention of the internet and mass media, which have obviously promoted many sports into a much larger scale, is why when it comes to our species, historically, soccer is the most loved sport ever in human history. After all, this is why the highest paid athlete today is soccer star Lionel Messi. Unfortunately, though, at the same time, when a sport is this popular, there is also so much money involved that it increases the chances of unfair practices and even blatant corruption sometimes, like everything in life. For instance, when it comes to soccer club competitions, whether it's the Champions League or the Premier League in England or various other leagues around the world, typically the richest teams have an enormous advantage because the richest teams can always buy the best players. And this is why when it comes to the Champions League, for example, the same handful of teams win almost every year because they are simply the richest, and there is no things like a draft or a salary cap which would potentially spread talented players around to different teams. Typically, in fact, if a team does happen to discover a really talented player, they'll eventually leave that club because they'll get millions and millions of more dollars playing for one of the rich clubs. And of course, this is another reason why this is the case in European soccer, is because the sport encompasses many different teams all across the world, which makes creating a fair system of talent distribution incredibly complicated. Thus, usually the only way for a team to compete for the Champions League title is to have a super rich owner. And of course, unfairness is not just limited to club team play, but also on the international stage as well, but in a different way. For example, when it comes to FIFA, the main organization that governs soccer around the world, FIFA has been criticized many times over the years for corrupt practices even. For instance, granting authoritarian nations with many human rights violations, the opportunity to host the World Cup. It was obviously only in 2018 that Russia had hosted the World Cup, and though great for, the people of Russia who had the opportunity to host such an event, obviously today, looking back, that doesn't seem like the best choice. However, despite the flaws that occur when it comes to a sport this popular with that much money involved, as what happens in many different global events when you have lots of different countries involved, regardless, soccer is still the most unifying game in the world, and one everyone should check out sometime if they haven't already, especially with the World Cup coming up soon, because at the end of the day, soccer is the world's sport, and a sport that kids all over the globe, rich or poor, grow up playing. So, if you have some time, be sure to check out the World Cup coming up soon in November, because the entire world will literally be watching, so don't miss out. As always, remember, billions of years led to you, so make